Today we're living in a world where there's a war on terror. What should be the Christian response to this terrible tragedy we face in our world today? Hello, my name is Father Mike Manning. I'm a Catholic priest. This is a program in which we're trying to bring to you the reality of God entering into your life, bringing hope, bringing healing, and bringing a great deal of love. I'm a person who's experienced Jesus in my life in the midst of my sinfulness and my failure. And in the midst of that seemingly overwhelming failure, I have experienced a love of God that is very real. And that love of God brings me peace, and it gives me a sense of direction in my life, but it also gives me a fire, a desire that for whatever time I have left in my life, I want to share with other people the goodness of what's happened in my own heart. Now, in the midst of all of these concerns that are part of our lives, the closeness of the relationship in the family, the struggle with children, the struggle with facing sickness, there's an overriding thing that's happening in our world today, and that's the world of terror. Since the time of the crash of the airplanes at 9/11, the experience of insecurity, the experience of deep fear has come to us very strongly. The word terror comes up again, and we watch in the news, we hear on the radio and read in the newspaper time again of terrorists coming into innocent people's lives and sometimes blowing themselves up if they're not just throwing bombs. And we shake our heads and say, what in heaven's name is going on? And even though some of this terrorism happens far away, it affects us. It affects us in a big way, because whenever anything happens to us, let's say we live in the United States and we're citizens of this country, we're deeply affected by what happens in our country, even if it's far away from where we are. And so this world of struggle in marriage, this world of struggle with children, this world of the confusion and wanting to know what's the road to take with regard to illness, is also covered with a shadow, if you will, and the shadow of terrorism. The shadow of the fear of someone hating us very much, hating us so much that they want to kill us. Well, that brings us to a way of how do we get in touch with this? How do we deal with this reality that we hear of on the news and in the newspapers so often? I'd like to share with you some thoughts that I've had. I teach a course right here in San Bernardino with the Catholic Diocese. There's a 3-year course that people take for understanding the church, understanding the Bible, understanding the direction of God in their life. Very intensive courses. And I'm one of the teachers. I give a couple courses each semester. And this semester I've been asked to talk on the topic of the Crusades. Boy, now there you go. Now I hope you're with me now. And again, I'm wanting to talk to you about the power of Christ entering into your life, in your marriage, with your children, with that sickness that you have, and even with that terror. But I want to stop and look at something that happened 1,000 years ago, or almost 1,000 years ago, and what the situation of the world was. And I want for us to look at that, and from that, start to open up some doors that maybe are going to take away some of the fear that we experience in our own life about this terror, by starting to understand, and this is what's strange, The same things were going on 1,000 years ago in many ways. And now, what happened and what did they do? And what are some of the courses that we as followers of Jesus need to take in order to find a solution to this terrible problem? When you talk about the Crusades, and just bear with me for a little bit, it goes back to the year 1095 after Jesus, 1095. It's a time that we call the Middle Ages. It's between the coming of Christ and our time, and it's kind of there in the Middle Ages. Very pivotal times. It was a world in which there was a Roman Catholic experience in the world of Europe today. The church was strong. There was a pope in Rome that wielded a great deal of power, and there were also bishops who not only had power on a spiritual realm, but also had power in a militaristic realm. There were bishops that had armies, and they protected parts of where they were. It was a fascinating world covering a great deal of what Europe is today. That was the world in which they lived. But there was another reality, and that was a reality that goes over to, let's say, into present-day Turkey, into places like Syria in the Mideast. This is the world in which there were Muslims. Muslims were strong. If you'll think for a moment that Muhammad, the man who was the one who had the angel Gabriel come to him and start dictating to him the words of the book called the Quran, this was back in the year 600 and something. Now we come 400 years later, and there's a real power of Islam. There's a real power of the Islamic world going and moving through present-day Turkey and Syria and even into Afghanistan and places like Iran. But there was another reality, and that was the reality of the Greek Orthodox Church. Have you ever heard of the word Byzantium? Byzantium. It's a kingdom that was very, very Greek in its understanding. So we had a Roman world in Europe. We had a Greek world in present day Greece and certainly part of Turkey today. But then we had a Muslim world, and this Muslim world was moving and growing. Each of these realities were vying with one another. Then there was another reality, and this is important to understand, and it was the reality of a pagan world. When we talk about Christianity, we're talking about monotheism of one God, and we're talking about Islam, we're talking about the one God, the Allah, and we're also talking about that with the Greeks. So we've got these Christian and God-centered experiences going on. But then there was an outside force, and that was the barbarians and the pagans in some of these Germanic areas, and sometimes even as far off as Mongolia, starting to move in. So we had forces of worlds that were contending with each other and fighting in big ways. And in the midst of this, one of these powers, and this is the Greek power, came up and said, we're really threatened by these Muslims. It seems that the Muslims are starting to rise up, and they're moving into our country. They're moving through Turkey, and they're starting to come to the places where we are. And remember, their capital was Constantinople, present-day Istanbul. And they were looking around thinking, oh my gosh, these foreign powers are coming. And what these Greek Christians did was they went to the Pope and they said, hey, Pope, could you somehow give us some help? Because we need somebody that's going to protect us from these Muslims. Well, the Pope got together and he said, well, we've got to stop this. And one of the problems is that the Muslims have moved into our sacred land, to the Holy Land, the place where Jesus was born, where he lived and where he died. We want to be able to go as pilgrims into that land. We want to go there. And the Muslims, it seems, are holding us back from that. And so what the Pope did was he called all of the church together and he said, come on, let's get an army together and let's have a crusade. Let's go and let's free Israel from the power of the Muslims. And that's exactly what they did. Thousands of men got together with real power and started marching across Europe in order to go to the Holy Land, in order to bring it the freedom to be able to have a Christian land. The Crusades, this started around the year 1100, just around, that's probably the best time to figure out. But the desire was, we are going to have a free land. The only problem was that as we hear the accounts of this army of people going, it seems, to do something good, on the way they did some really terrible things. In that first crusade, there were many Jews that were killed. They were killed because they were Jesus killers, actually killed, just brought to their own death. And then there were people that moved in when they came to Jerusalem, and they encircled the town of Jerusalem. They encircled it, you know? And then they came into the city, and they slaughtered every Muslim and every Jew that was found there. Terrible, terrible killing, terrible injustice. I'm going to share with you a little bit more of this very sad story, but powerful and important story, because the story that we tell is a story that opens the door, I believe, to the hope that you and I can have today of a new world in the midst of our fear of terror and the divisions we experience. Please stay tuned. I'm going to be coming right back. Thank you so very much for being willing to be part of the mighty 800 family of supporters of this television ministry. I've come to you in the past and told you we need that support. We need 800 people who are willing to give us a donation every month to allow us to overcome the big costs of producing the program, getting it up on the satellite, and getting it into your home to bring blessings. I'm happy to say that as we started out with 418, now the number has moved to 505. Thank you so very much for being willing to become part of this experience of preaching the gospel. You are a vital part of this. When you join with your prayers and with your donations, you allow us to move away from the brink of, oh, well, that was a program, we're just going to stop, to allowing us to start again and be refreshed and renewed to preaching the gospel in more and more ways. Now, I know that as I come to you asking for financial support, this is a tough financial time in our country. But still, I've got to believe that preaching the good news of Christ through this powerful medium in which we come to hundreds of thousands of people, that this medium can allow the good news of Christ to change lives, and that's worth all the sacrifices that you want to make. Please, make sure that you're part of this family of the mighty 800. We need 295 more people. Would you please, if you're not part of the mighty 800 already, would you join and become someone that we can eliminate that number and have 800 people allowing the good news of Christ to be preached powerfully on television. The problem of the Crusades, though, is not just this one crusade. Whenever you talk about this crusade in the period of maybe some 200 years, there were up to 9 different crusades, 9 different movements of people wanting to march like armies and come in and bring in their experience as Catholics, their experience as Christians, and moving against the world of the Jews, moving against the world of the Muslims, and even as we find a crusade or two after this first one, where they actually came in and Christians started killing other Christians. The Roman Catholics started moving into the town of Constantinople, And they even brought slaughter and death to the Greek Catholics that were there, to the Orthodox Greeks that were there. Oh, the story of the Crusades just shakes my heart and my soul, because I find that people who are filled with their love of Jesus seem so concerned about religion and so concerned about the power that they have that they disregard the respect that they need to have for people of other religions. And so a Jew was not a human being, but was a Jesus killer, and boom, let's kill them. And a Muslim was someone that seemed to move far away from the message that we have of Jesus and the goodness of what we have. And so there seemed to be a right to just go in and kill them. And there's even words that the Pope would speak of some of these people who would march into these situations. If you die, if you're killed by a Muslim or by a Jew, you're going to get the gift of everlasting life in heaven, and you're going to be able to go straight to heaven. Isn't that amazing? That if maybe you'd lived a sinful life, and now because if you go out and you fight a battle and you're killed, that's an open door for being able to get to heaven. Well, what's going on? What's going on? Why is this movement going on? Well, there's a dream for financial gain. The hope is that moving from Europe and going into the Mideast would be able to get more business. There's a movement of freedom from simple people that have lived lives of subjection by rulers in Europe. Oh boy, if they join the Crusades, they can get out and see the world and have a new sense of freedom. There's also this desire for territorial gain. We want more land, and we want to have the control of Christianity there. And then there's that religious motivation, a religious motivation that called people to march out with guns, not guns, but with swords and cannons to kill other people in the name of God. Oh, and I'm looking back and I'm saying, oh my gosh, isn't that what's going on today? I'm talking to you about something that happened 1,000 years ago, but now, as if turning everything around, people can get so immersed in their love of God and in their religious experience that they get justification for going out and killing people and taking on material gain and doing it in the name of God, and even killing other people who believe in God. Oh, I don't know about you, but when I hear the story, whether it's in the Muslim world or in the Christian world or even in the Jewish world with the fighting that goes on, and I say, what's going on? We've got people that believe in God and are supposed to have a sense of oneness and unity, but we have such this inclination to want to kill, to say that I'm the only way, I'm the right way, and I want to force my way on you, and so people die. And if we don't listen to history, if we don't learn, we start coming back over and over again to be punished by our ignorance and our lack of listening to what's happened in the past. You and I must listen to history. We must think about those Crusades. We must think of also the Muslim leader Saladin. He was an Egyptian, a great military leader, that after the Crusaders from Europe had come in and they were able to take over Jerusalem, several years later, he came with his army and he conquered all of the Christians and he was able to take back the Holy Land. Well, the battle went on and on. The Crusades, as I mentioned to you, lasted for a good 200 years of desire to be able to get that land, to get that power, and do it in the name of God. Brothers and sisters, we're living in a world in which terror is very, very much a common word. The thought of being able to come into a situation and kill a bunch of people that you hate in order that your world can now be prominent is something that we do, and we do it in the name of God. I wonder if you just kind of stopped and you opened up the New Testament and you tried to understand What does Jesus really have to say about the world of terror? What does he have to say about this desire for militancy, this desire for control and marching in and taking over things? What would be the attitude of Jesus toward terror? I find it fascinating when you look in the Bible, you find that Jesus had a disciple. He had an apostle, rather, and his name was Simon. And of course we know Simon Peter, but there was another Simon, and his title was that of a zealot. Now, zealots, as we hear from Josephus, who was one of the historians of that time, tells us that they were terrorists. They were people who were dead set on trying to get rid of the Romans, who were an occupying army in the Holy Land as we know it today. And imagine this, whether he was formally a zealot or whether he was now a zealot, there was an influence in this man of a desire to get rid of all this force of foreign power. And Jesus invites this man to come and be part of his apostleship. Isn't that amazing? So when we ask, what is Jesus' attitude towards terrorism? It seems that he was one who brought in and dealt with terrorists, not by throwing stones at them, but by wanting to dialogue with them and work with them, and even trying to get the enthusiasm that they had for their cause and somehow to rechannel that and bring it into the vision of the kingdom that he had. We have another instance of this terroristic attitude. One time the apostles were going down the road. They were going towards Jerusalem, and they were coming on a Samaritan town. Well, it seems the Samaritans didn't like what Jesus was doing because he was going to Jerusalem, and at that time there was a real separation between the Samaritans and the people who were Jewish connected with Jerusalem, and they said, no, you can't come in town. And two of the apostles come to Jesus, James and John, and I always think of John as being this gentle person, but they were so incensed that they said to Jesus, Lord, help us to send fire down upon this city, this Samaritan city that refuses you entrance, and let us blow them out of the water. Amazing. Amazing. Jesus is living in a world where the sentiment of terror is very, very real. Jesus knew terrorism. He knew this world that was, as we hear of the Crusades, is all around us. He knows the world of terror that we have right now in our own life. And Jesus enters into that world and gives his message. And what did he do? He brought Simon in. He brought John in. He brought all of these diverse people. And he gave them a message. And he said, listen to this. And this is what's the key to our understanding of this situation. He said, I want you to love God. Okay. But I want you to love your neighbor. And he even says this, I want you to do good to those who persecute you. Imagine that. The call of Jesus is a call to go to such extremes, to such love, that we actually reach out and we love those that persecute us. Oh, brothers and sisters, as I review with you this reality of the violence of 1,000 years ago and the violence that we have now with the war and with the terror and with the division between Christian, Muslim, and Jew, listen to the word of Jesus and the call to love. That doesn't mean that we don't have to restrain people that are terrorists. Of course we do. We don't allow them to hurt people. We have the right to be self-defending. But we also are called, I believe, in the message of Jesus, to be people who fight strongly for justice. Constraint and justice are the long-term challenge that Jesus gives us to bringing about the peace, not just by killing all the terrorists and hoping that that's going to be the end, no, but working towards justice along with constraint for the kingdom of God. Stay tuned. I'm going to be right back with some prayers. Thank you so very much for being part of this television ministry, for watching. I hope that you're being blessed and that your life is being transformed, if you will, by the power of the love of Jesus for you to bring hope and life into your world. Remember, this ministry is not supported by commercials. It's supported by you being willing to send us a check, send us a commitment to allow us to be able to continue this vital ministry. Please, please. It's really important that you make prayer and the giving of a financial gift important. To encourage you to send that gift, I'd like to send you, for your gift, a copy of this book by a friend of mine, Father Marty Padovani. The book is called Healing Wounded Relationships, especially relationships in the family. This book can really help. Please support us and let me help you through this beautiful book. The greatest power comes in the love that we give to one another, the understanding and the care. And I want to share with you my own reaching out, if you will, to bring some of that love by responding to your letters. Thank you so much for writing letters, letting me know what you think about what I'm saying, letting me know what's going on in your own life as you talk about the struggle for healing and the struggle for peace in our world and in your life. I've got wonderful letters, and here's a letter from Lynn from Waukesha, Wisconsin. Thanks for your program, and she uses it. She watches the program every time after her Bible study. And the Word Net program, I've watched it a couple times, and I enjoy it very much. It's Kevin, and Kevin is from New Jersey. Oh gosh, we got New Jersey. And here's one from California, and this is a fun one here. I just got through listening to your talk. Watched the beginning. It was so interesting. I've been listening ever since I found this station. I'm 90 years old, in good health. Your teaching have given me good help in mind, body, and spirit, and I love Jesus, and I'm so grateful. This is from Rio del California. Oh gosh, thanks, Mary, very much. And here's another beautiful one. I listened to your program, and I found it quite interesting. Our youngest daughter and husband are Catholic, and they haven't been attending their church. And I'd ask that they pray for that. And here we have another prayer, just real quick, from Ventura. Valerie is asking for praying for her daughter Emily and for her husband Ronnie. Lord, all these requests, all these people need your help. Come, Lord, bring your peace, bring your healing, and may Jesus' love for you always make you smile.